My name is William Hargrove. I built everything you see with these two hands. 300 acres. A produce empire that fed half the eastern seaboard. In Shenandoah County. The Hargrove name meant something. I made sure of that. But every morning I stood on that porch, staring at an empty driveway, waiting for the one thing money couldn't buy back, the market. That's what we called it. But it was more than a market. It was everything I built from nothing. 30 years ago, I started with one truck and a handshake deal with a farmer down the road. By 1991, we were shipping apples, peaches, and vegetables to restaurants and grocery stores from Virginia, all the way to New York City. The warehouse alone was the size of a city block. Workers came in before sunrise and didn't leave until the last crate was loaded and counted. Edward ran it. My firstborn. 30 years old and already carrying the weight of a man twice his age. Every morning he was the first one through those warehouse doors. Every night he was the last one to leave. Ledgers, shipments, suppliers, workers, all of it on his shoulders. And every morning I walked in and found something wrong. Not because there was always something wrong, but because that was the only language I knew with Edward. Criticism, never praise. Never, son, you're doing a good job. Just fix this. Change that. Do better. I told myself it was how you made a man stronger. Push him harder. Expect more. Never settle. What I didn't understand, what I refused to understand, was that Edward wasn't getting stronger under that weight. He was just getting quieter. The Henderson order. Did it go out last night?
Yes, sir. 40 crates. Signed and shipped by 9 o'clock.
7% is still 7%, Edward. That's money rotting on my floor. I don't want to hear better than last week. I want to hear 0. The Staunton buyer called. He wants to double the order in January. Make sure we're ready. That was how most of our conversations went. I gave orders. He followed them. I found problems. He fixed them. And somewhere in all of that, I forgot that he was my son. Not my employee. My son. There is something about a kitchen in the early morning that tells you everything you need to know about a family. Not the living room. Not the dining table at dinner. The kitchen. Before the day starts. Before the masks go on. Before everyone remembers what role they're supposed to play. That's where you see people as they really are. Margaret was always first. Before the sun. Before the birds. Before anyone else in that house had opened their eyes, she was already in that kitchen. Coffee on the stove. Bread in the oven. The whole house still dark and quiet. And there she was, moving around that kitchen like she was the only person in the world. I used to watch her sometimes from the doorway, before she knew I was there. And I would think, this woman deserves better than what I give her. I would think it. And then I would walk in, sit down, and pick up my newspaper. And the thought would disappear like smoke. 34 years. That's how long Margaret and I had been, married by the summer of 1991. 34 years of breakfasts in that kitchen. 34 years of her pouring my coffee before I asked for it. 34 years of me taking that coffee and saying nothing. Not thank you. Not good morning. Nothing. Just the sound of the newspaper opening and the world outside coming in. Between us like it always did. Victoria was there too that morning. Edward's wife. She had been part of our household for 5 years by then. 5 years of breakfasts in that kitchen. 5 years of watching. That was what Victoria did better than anyone I have ever known. She watched. She listened. She collected information the way some people collect coins, quietly, carefully, and always with a purpose in mind. I didn't see it back then. I thought she was just a good daughter-in-law. Helpful, pleasant, always in the right place at the Right time saying the right thing. It took me years to understand that when someone is always in the right place saying the right thing, that is not an accident. That is a strategy. And Sophia, my granddaughter, 5 years old that summer, Edward and Victoria's little girl. She had her mother's sharp eyes and her father's quiet nature. Every single morning without fail, she sat at that kitchen table and waited for me. She always had something. A drawing she made the night before. A flower she picked from the garden on her way in. A smooth stone from the driveway that she had decided looked like a horse or a cloud or something only a 5-year-old could see. She would hold it up the moment I walked through that door. Both hands, eyes wide, like she was presenting me with the most important thing in the world. And every morning I walked past her, not because I didn't see her. I saw her. I saw those little hands holding up whatever treasure she had found. I saw those eyes waiting. I saw all of it. But I was William Hargrove. And William Hargrove did not stop for drawings and stones. William Hargrove had a newspaper to read and a county to run and a business that didn't stop moving just because a 5-year-old wanted his attention. I have thought about those mornings many times since then, about what it would have cost me to stop, to put down the newspaper for 60 seconds, to look at the drawing, to say, Sophia, this is beautiful, to watch her face light up. 60 seconds. That's all it would have taken. 60 seconds that I never gave her. And I wonder sometimes how different things might have been if I had.
Father Calloway called yesterday evening. He wanted to remind you about the donation for the church roof.
Tell him the check is in the mail.
William, you said that 3 weeks ago.
Then tell him the check will be in the mail.
It's a good drawing, sweetheart.
Edward turned that drawing right side up. I saw him do it from behind my newspaper. I saw him look at it. I saw him say something to Sophia that made her almost smile. And I felt something move in my chest that I didn't have a name for. Something uncomfortable. Something that felt a lot like shame. So I turned the page of my newspaper, and I kept reading. Because that was easier. That was always easier. The kitchen emptied out slowly after that. Edward back to the warehouse. Victoria clearing the plates with that quiet efficiency of hers. Margaret moving to the sink. And Sophia picked up her drawing from the table, folded it carefully in half, and put it in the pocket of her little dress. She didn't throw it away. She kept it. That detail stayed with me for a long time. She kept it. Victoria Hargrove. I have spent a lot of time thinking about how to describe that woman fairly. And I have decided that the fairest thing I can say is this. Victoria was not a bad person. She was a smart person. And sometimes, in the wrong environment, those two things look exactly the same. She came from a good family. The Whitfields. Old Virginia money. Not as much as ours, but enough to carry themselves with a certain pride. She married Edward when he was 25, and she was 23. I approved of the match. She was presentable. She was intelligent. She knew how to conduct herself in a room. I thought she was exactly what Edward needed. A strong woman beside a quiet man. What I did not consider was what a strong woman beside a quiet man might do when she decided that quiet man was being treated unfairly. Victoria loved Edward. I believe that. In her own way, in her own complicated way, she loved him. But love in Victoria's hands was never a simple thing. It came with observations, with comparisons, with carefully placed questions that sounded like concern but landed like knives. She had a gift for it. You would finish a conversation with Victoria feeling like she had been entirely on your side, and only later, lying in the dark, would you realize that she had moved you 3 steps in a direction you never intended to go. Edward was not a weak man. But he was a tired man. And tired men are vulnerable to the wrong kind of attention, especially when the right kind has never been offered. There are conversations that change things. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with shouting or tears or slammed doors. Just quietly. Just two people in a room, one of them talking and the other one listening. And by the time it's over, something has shifted that cannot be shifted back. I didn't know about this particular conversation for a long time. Edward never told me about it. Victoria certainly never told me about it. I only learned about it much later, when the damage was already done, and the only thing left to do was understand how it had happened. This is what I was told. This is how I imagine it went. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Edward had been in that warehouse since before sunrise. He had handled a supplier dispute in the morning, balanced the quarterly accounts by noon, and was working through a new shipment schedule when Victoria came in. She brought him lunch. She always brought him lunch on the days she knew he wouldn't stop to eat. That was Victoria. Always thoughtful. Always present. Always there at exactly the right moment with exactly the right thing. She set the sandwich down beside him. She sat across from him. And then she began to talk.
Edward, I want to say something to you and I need you to actually hear me. Not nod and go back to your ledger. Actually hear me. Can you do that? I've been watching you for 5 years. 5 years of early mornings and late nights and missed dinners and weekends that were never really weekends because the market never stops and your father never stops and you never stop because you are your father's son and stopping is not something Hargrove men do. I have watched you carry this business on your back like it was nothing. Like it was just what you did. Like it was normal for a man your age to have the weight of 300 acres and 100 workers and a dozen contracts sitting on his shoulders every single day without anyone ever once asking him how he was holding up. And I have watched your father walk through that warehouse every single morning. I have watched him pick up crates and inspect, produce, and talk to workers and make decisions. And I have watched him walk right past your office, right past the desk where his son has been, sitting since 6 in the morning doing the work that keeps this entire empire running. I have watched him do that, and I have said nothing. For 5 years, I have said nothing because I told myself it was not my place. I told myself you were handling it. I told myself that was just how William Hargrove was and there was nothing to be done about it. But then I sat at that breakfast table this morning and I watched Sophia hold up her drawing and I watched your father walk past her, the same way he walks past your office every morning. And something in me just, I can't be quiet anymore, Edward. I can't sit across from you at dinner every night and watch you disappear a little more and say nothing. You closed a deal this morning that doubled our January revenue. Do you understand what that means? Do you understand what your father's business would look like right now without you? And he didn't knock on your door. He didn't say, well done. He just walked through and kept going, like you were part of the inventory. I am not telling you what to feel, Edward. I am not telling you what to do. I am just telling you what I see. Because somebody in this house needs to tell you what they see. And it seems like I am the only one willing to do it.
Victoria, I hear you. I always hear you. And I know you mean well. I know everything you just said came from a place of, I know it came from love. But I need you to understand something about my father. He is not a man who says things. He never has been. His father wasn't. His grandfather wasn't. That is just how these men are built. They show up. They work. They provide, and they expect the people around them to understand that the showing up and the working and the providing is the love. It doesn't come in words. It doesn't come in knocked doors and well dones and thank yous. It comes in the fact that this estate is still standing, that this family still has a name in this county. That is how my father loves. And I made my peace with that a long time ago. And Jack, I know what you're really saying when you bring up Jack. I know. And I want you to leave it alone. Jack is my brother. Whatever my father feels about Jack is between my father and Jack. It has nothing to do with me, and I will not sit here and let it become something it doesn't need to become. Now please, let me finish these numbers.
That was what Edward said, and I believe he meant every word of it. I believe that in that moment, he genuinely had made his peace. I believe he genuinely did not want it to become something it didn't need to become. Edward was a disciplined man, a controlled man. He had built walls inside himself the way I had built walls around this estate, high and thick and designed to keep certain things out. But Victoria had not been trying to knock the walls down. She was too smart for that. She knew you cannot knock down a wall that a man has spent 30 years building. What you can do, if you are patient enough, if you are careful enough, is find the small crack, the one place where the mortar is thin, and press, gently, consistently, not enough to break anything, just enough to let the cold air in. She found the crack that afternoon. She didn't break through it. She just found it, and she pressed. And Edward sat at that desk, with his pen in his hand and his eyes on the door. She had walked through, and somewhere behind those disciplined eyes, in the place where the wall was thinnest, something shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. I didn't know any of this at the time. I was at the other end of the estate, in my office, looking at the same numbers. Edward was looking at and thinking about the Staunton contract and the January expansion and 100 other things that seemed important. I was not thinking about my son, sitting alone in a warehouse, with a cold sandwich and a crack in his wall. I was not thinking about that at all. Every man has a place where he goes when the day is done and the masks come off. For some men, it is a bar. For some men, it is a workshop in the back of the house where they fix things that don't need fixing, just to have something to do with their hands. For me, it was the front porch. That wide Virginia porch that looked out over the oak-lined driveway and the green fields and the hills in the distance that turned gold and purple when the sun went down. That porch was the one place in the world where William Hargrove did not have to be. William Hargrove. Where he could just sit and breathe and be a man who was tired and getting older and missing his son. I had a rocking chair out there. Old thing. My father's chair originally. Heavy oak, worn smooth on the armrests from decades of hands gripping it the way hands grip things when man is thinking hard about something he cannot solve. I sat in that chair every evening without fail. Winter or summer, rain or shine. Margaret used to say the chair was the most honest thing about me. I think she was right. The bourbon was always there too. A glass on the side table. Sometimes I drank it. Sometimes I just let it sit there. It was less about the drinking and more about the ritual. The act of pouring it, of sitting down, of telling myself the day is over. Whatever happened today is done. Tomorrow is tomorrow. Tonight you just sit, but the sitting was never really quiet. Not inside. Inside there was always the same thing running, underneath everything else, like a river under ice. Jack, where is he right now? What is he doing right now? Is he eating? Is he sleeping? Is he safe? Is he? I never let myself finish that last question. A man like me does not ask that question out loud, not even to himself. You just push it down and pour the bourbon and watch the sun go down and tell yourself he is fine. He is Jack. Jack is always fine. 14 months. That is how long he had been gone by that evening. 14 months of empty chairs and quiet dinners, and a house that felt like a clock that had stopped ticking. People moved through it. Conversations happened. Meals were eaten, and dishes were washed, and the business kept running, and the days kept turning. But something was missing from the center of it all. Something that I had never properly appreciated until it was gone. The way Jack filled a room. Not loudly. He was never a loud boy. Just fully. He was always fully present in a way that most people never are. When Jack was in a room, you felt it. When he was gone, you felt that too. Margaret felt it the most. She never said so. She would never say so. But I watched her set his place at the table the first week he was gone, before she caught herself. I watched her start to call his name, once when she heard boots on the porch steps and then stop when she remembered. I watched her carry that quietly, the way she carried everything, without complaint, without drama, without asking anyone to notice. Just carrying it. Every single day. That evening she came out to the porch about an hour after I sat down. I heard the screen door. I didn't turn around. I knew her footsteps the way you know a song you've heard 10,000 times. She came and stood beside me for a moment. Then she pulled the other chair close and sat down. And we watched the sun go down together the way we had done 10,000 times before. And then she spoke.
William, I need to talk to you about something, and I need you to actually listen. Not the way you listen when you are still thinking about the warehouse. Really listen. I know you miss Jack. I know that is what sits behind everything you do and everything you don't do these days. I know that empty driveway is the first thing you look at in the morning and the last thing you look at night. I know all of that because I feel it too. Every single day I feel it too. But I need you to hear something that I have been carrying for a long time and have not known how to say. Edward is here, William. Edward has been here every single day. He was here before Jack left, and he has been here every single day since. He is in that warehouse at 6 every morning. He is the last one to leave every night. He is running your business. He is keeping your name standing in this county. He is doing everything you ever asked of him and more. And I watch you look at that empty driveway every evening, and I think, when is the last time you looked at the son who is standing right in front of you? I am not asking you to love Jack less. God knows I could never ask that. I am just asking you to see Edward more. That is all. Just see him. He is your son too, William. He has always been your son too.
Margaret, I hear you. About Edward, I hear you. And maybe you are right. Maybe I have not been. Maybe there are things I could do differently with Edward. I will think about that. I mean that. But right now, all I need is for Jack to come home. Let him come home. Let me see him with my own eyes. Let me know he is all right. Then everything else we can talk about. One thing at a time. Is he coming home, Margaret? Do you actually feel that? Or are you just saying it because you need to believe it? She went back inside after that. The screen door closed behind her, and I sat, alone with the last of the light and everything she had said sitting on my chest, like a stone. She was right about Edward. I knew she was right about Edward. I had known it for a long time in the place where you know things you are not ready to act on yet. I sat on that porch until the last light was gone. Until the hills were just dark shapes against a dark sky. Until the bourbon was warm, and the crickets were loud, and the driveway was just a pale stripe in the darkness. And I talked to him the way I never talked to him in person. Quietly. Inside my own head. In the dark. Come home, Jack. Come home. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to take you back 1 year. To the night before Jack left. There are nights that stay with you. Not because something traumatic happened. Not because anyone said anything extraordinary. But because you didn't know, at the time, that it was the last night. The last night everything was whole. The last night the house was full in the way it used to be full. Before life started taking pieces of it away. One by one, Margaret made his favorite that evening. Pot roast. Apple pie from the orchard. The whole house smelled like something good was happening. And for one night, it was. For one night, I wasn't William Hargrove the businessman. I wasn't the man with the warehouse and the contracts and the county reputation to maintain. I was just a father, sitting at the head of a table full of people I loved, watching my youngest son laugh at something his brother said, watching Margaret smile the way she used to smile, before the years made smiling something she had to remind herself to do. Jack that night was everything. You know how some people light up a room without trying, without performing, without even being aware they're doing it? That was Jack. He would just arrive, and the temperature of the whole room would change. Edward was even smiling that night. Really smiling. Not the polite smile he wore at the warehouse. A real smile. The kind that reaches the eyes. I hadn't seen that smile on Edward in a long time. And I remember thinking, I should make them laugh more. I should make this happen more. And then I remember thinking nothing at all, because Jack said something that made everyone laugh again, and the thought just floated away. I watched my family that night from the head of that table, and I felt something I don't have a good word for, something between pride and fear, the kind of feeling you get when you are holding something precious, and you become aware, for just a moment, of how easily it could break. I pushed that feeling down, the way I pushed most feelings down, poured myself another glass, and told myself, everything is fine. Everything will always be fine. It wasn't until much later, lying in the dark after everyone had gone to bed, that I let myself think the thing I had been avoiding all evening. Tomorrow morning, Jack gets on a bus, and I don't know when I will see him again. I don't know what he will look like when he comes back. I don't know what that place will do to him. I don't know. I don't know if he is coming back. I got up, walked down the hall, stood outside his door for a long time, listening to the silence on the other side of it. And I didn't knock. William Hargrove did not knock on doors in the middle of the night to tell his son he was scared. William Hargrove went back to bed and stared at the ceiling and waited for morning. I stood in that doorway and I watched him go, and my hand was still raised where the handshake had ended, and I stood there long after he had disappeared into the mist, with my hand still raised, like I was reaching for something. That was already gone. That handshake. I have thought about that handshake every single day since then. What it would have cost me to open my arms instead of my hand. What it would have meant to him. What it would have meant to me. Nothing. It would have cost me nothing. And it would have meant everything. It was a Tuesday. An ordinary Tuesday. The kind of day that doesn't announce itself. Doesn't give you any warning. Just shows up like every other day, and then changes everything. I had been going to Pete's barbershop on Jefferson Street every third Tuesday for 20 years. Pete Dawson, 70 years old if he was a day, hands steady as a surgeon, talked too much, but I forgave him for it, because some men need to fill silence, and Pete was one of them. And on that particular Tuesday, I was grateful for it. Because his talking meant I didn't have to. I was thinking about the Staunton contract. I was thinking about the January numbers. I was thinking about everything and nothing. The way a man thinks when he sits in a barber's chair and lets someone else take care of something for once. The radio was on. Some old country song I half recognized. The ceiling fan was turning. The smell of shaving, cream and old wood, and something that reminded me of my father's barbershop 40 years ago, before everything got so complicated. Pete was talking about the Henderson boy. Said he came back from the Gulf last week, walking with a limp but alive. I said good for the Hendersons, and I meant it. But somewhere underneath that, somewhere in the place, I kept the things I didn't say out loud. I thought, when does my boy come home? I have tried many times to describe what I saw in that mirror, and I have never quite found the right words. A young man standing in the doorway, in his military dress uniform, duffel bag over one shoulder, hair freshly cut at base, taller than I remembered, or maybe I had just forgotten how tall he was, how he filled a doorway, the same way he filled every room he ever walked into. Just fully, completely, all the way there. And he was looking at me, in that mirror, with those eyes, his mother's eyes. And he was smiling, that quiet smile of his, the one that always made me feel like everything was going to be all right, even when nothing was. He came home. My Jack came home. And in that moment, in that small barbershop on Jefferson Street, I was not William Hargrove, the landowner. I was not the man with 300 acres. I was not the man with the warehouse, empire, and the county reputation, and the iron will, and the cold handshakes. I was just a father who got his boy back. And for one moment, just one, everything in the world was exactly where it was supposed to be.